All right, guys, today we are going to quickly just review adding polynomials. I know we went over this in that video last week, but just this is the second lesson that they teach up at Whiteboard. All right, so quick warm up, just a reminder on how you use the distributive property. Again, this should be super duper easy, but you always multiply both of those parts by the 2. So I would get 8x, and then 2 times negative 8 is negative 16. If I have a negative sign out front, it's kind of like putting a negative 1 out there. So I would do negative 1 times 3x is negative 3x. And be careful here, a negative times a negative turns to a positive 7. All right, same thing here. I would get negative 5x squared. Here it's a negative times a negative, which turns into a positive 40x. And then a negative 5 times 10 is negative 50. All right, just as a quick vocab review, this would be a trinomial. This would be a binomial, and so would the first one would be a binomial. If I asked you what degree it is, this would be the second degree. Okay, this would just be the first degree. And so would this one. If I ask you the leading coefficient, the nice thing is these are already kind of in order and standard form. So the leading coefficient here is negative 5. Leading coefficient is negative 3. Leading coefficient is 8. These happen to already be written in standard form. Okay, so that's what we've been going over the last couple days. All right, so today, again, we're going to be adding polynomials, which is basically just adding like terms. You can use either a horizontal or a vertical format or hunt and peck. Okay, so method 1, I'll just quickly go over these because you're going to get to kind of choose which method you use. So method 1, basically they just kind of do it horizontally. They say, okay, I see some x squareds. I just combine them down here, plus, and then I do my 9x and my 4x. I just kind of write it here, and then my 27 and my negative 12, write it here, and then I work it out, and I say, oh, okay, 5x squared plus 13x, and then plus 15. So that's one way to do it. Okay, vertical method. That's where you kind of line it up. I think I use this one a little bit, but again, your kind of choice. So basically you line up like terms in the columns, and then you can combine. So I kind of put the x squareds lined up, the x's lined up, the normal numbers lined up, and then I just added them. So like 27 and negative 12, that's 15. There's my 13x, there's my 5x squared. Okay, and then method 3, basically it's hunting and pecking. So basically, this is mostly how I do it. I say, okay, here's a 3x squared and a 2x squared. I just kind of mark them off and say, okay, there's all my x squareds, 5x squared. I like to cross them off. Then I say, okay, here's a 9x and a 4x. That's 13x. Cross them off, I used them. And then 27 and negative 12, which is 15. And cross them off, I used them. And I took care of all my terms. Only thing you guys need to make sure to check for is it in standard form? So obviously, like my x squared is first, and then my x, and then just my other number. So it is in standard form there. Okay, so just to give you a little practice, go ahead and find each sum of these. You can use any method that you want. All right, so the first one, I'm going to do this one, kind of the hunting and pecking. So I'll combine my x squareds. So I see 3x squared plus x squared. That's like 1, which gives me 4x squared. Okay, I like to kind of cross it off. I used it. And then a negative 4 and a negative 9, which is negative 13. Okay, always saying just to check, is it in standard form? It is. I have my x squared listed, and then my just my normal number for my terms. Okay, the second one, I am going to kind of rearrange it, and I'll do it the vertical method. Okay, so I'm just going to rearrange this and put 2x squared. Plus, I'll put 4x and negative 9, okay, plus my other one. So I kind of used all those. It looks like I have an 8, so I'll put that back there. And a negative x squared, which would be right here. And nothing here, so you could just kind of leave that blank or put a 0 there. Okay, now I'll just kind of do this one up and down, just to show a couple different methods. Negative 9 plus 8 is negative 1. Okay, here I just have 4x. Okay, and then 2x squared minus x squared just gives me x squared. So now I'll just kind of put my symbols here. And good news, it's already in standard form. All right, you can also do subtracting. So we're going to just talk about subtracting real quick. I think I showed this in another video, but just as a quick refresher. Okay, if I am subtracting these two things, So basically I have this and I'm taking away everything back here. It's like I'm subtracting all of that. So I kind of like to distribute that negative to everything. So it's like really everything inside there becomes the opposite of what it is. So they change that to a negative 2x, that to a negative 8x squared, that to a negative 20. Then now this is just like a plus. Now I could combine. Like here I see a negative 8x squared, and a negative 8x squared is negative 16x squared. Okay, now it's much easier to do it. Now, you can do it the vertical method. I do not like this way because you have to think like, all right, negative 7x cubed minus 0x cubed. If it's like negative down here, I really don't like that. So I like to just change it to like everything inside there and change this part to plus. Much easier when you're just adding, and then you can be like, okay, these two together are negative 16 squared. Those two together are negative 33. So I'll do one together with you so you can kind of see one. Okay, so if I was doing this one, first thing I would do is I would be like, okay, so everything inside here kind of has to be opposite. So this first part I just keep, and then I say, okay, this turns to a minus 7x. Negative times a negative is a positive 3x squared, and that would turn to a negative 14. So that's kind of what I do. Now it's a big plus. Okay, so I kind of changed that up. Now, two ways you can do it. Again, I don't really like rewriting it, but if you wanted to, you could say, okay, I've got x plus 2, and then I've got a negative 7x. 3x squared would probably come up here, negative 14. Okay, now I can combine them. If I do it like that, I end up with negative 12 back here, negative 6x, and 3x squared. And now I have it in the correct order too. You guys probably notice I always start with the x squareds, then I went x. So I kind of went in descending order. Now, you can do it vertically like that, or I like to do kind of the hunt and peck. You're like, okay, is there any other x squareds? Nope. So I'll just do that. Okay, and then after that, we would go to our x's. I see a negative 7x and a positive x. That would give me negative 6x. I like to cross those off. And then finally, a positive 2 and a negative 14 is negative 12. So no matter which way you did it, you got the same answer. All right, why don't you guys go ahead and pause the video and try these two real quick. All right, so the first one, I like to just kind of say, all right, I got negative 6x minus 11. Everything inside here becomes opposite, so it becomes, I'll just put a plus sign, it becomes negative 2x and a positive 19, right? A negative times a negative, positive. Now I'll combine my x's. Okay, so if I do that, I see 6 and negative 2, which ends up being 4x. And then I see negative 11 and 19, which ends up being plus 8. And I am done with that first one. And I just realized the second one is one we already did, so I'm not going to have you do that one. So it says answer one of these questions about part A. It says which polynomial is being subtracted. Well, I would say I'll highlight it in green up here. This is the polynomial that's being subtracted. So that's good enough. All right, one last question. It says, album sales. Today's recording artists can sell hard copies, H, and digital copies, D, of their albums. The equation, H equals 9W plus 53, and D equals 13W plus 126, represent the number of albums, in thousands, one artist sold in W weeks. Okay, so they sold some hard copies, and they sold some digital copies. It says, write an equation that shows how many total albums were sold. Then it says predict how many total albums are sold than hard copies in 52 weeks. I think it should say how many more total albums are sold than hard copies in 52 weeks. So before you kind of do it, let's go ahead and think about what you need to do. So obviously they are selling this many digital, okay, and this many hard copies. And I want to know, write an equation that shows how many total albums were sold, digital and hard. Okay, well, if the hard copy was 9W plus 53, plus the digital was 13W plus 126, okay, if I combine those, I end up with, if I do 13W and 9W, that would be 22W plus, if I add the 53 there, I end up with 179. So it looks like that would be how many total albums were sold. the digital and the hard copy together. Okay, it says, what if I just asked you in 52 weeks if you could figure out how many total albums were sold? Well, I would do 22 times 52 weeks and then plus that 179. Okay, that would give me the answer. Then if I asked you like how many more of this compared to this were sold in 52 weeks, again, you could say, okay, well, so 9, in 52 weeks plus the 53, you could see how many hard copies. And then here, this is for digital copies, you could do the same thing. You could do 13 times 52 weeks plus 126 in order to answer that question. All right, one last problem. If you guys can read through this and try it on your own, and then I will quickly kind of go through at least part of the answer. All right, again, I've got some hard copies and some digital copies, okay? So here's my hard copies again, here's my digital copies. Again, this is in thousands. I kind of forgot to say that on the last slide. And then in W weeks, it says write an equation that shows how many more digital albums were sold than hard copies. All right, so here's my digital. They said I'm selling more of those. So I have 13W plus 126. If I want to know how many more, that would be subtraction. So I have this amount minus my other amount. My hard copies, 9W plus 53. Okay, so now I could kind of work this out. So I have 13W plus 126. I'm going to kind of think, oh, I minus everything inside there. So minus 9W and minus 53. If you'd like to write it like this, you can. Okay, so now if I do 9W or 13W take away 9W, that gives me 4W. And then 126 minus 53. If I subtract that, I get 73. As long as I'm doing my math right, because I'm doing this quick. That's how many more were sold. Now, if I want to know in 52 weeks how many more were sold, I could just do that 4 times the 52 plus 73. Whatever that equals, that would be my answer. All right, so hopefully that just gave you a little bit more practice with adding and subtracting polynomials. So you'll find this document in Schoology, but you are going to be doing this page. You already obviously did, like, I think 1 through 10 or something yesterday. I can't even remember. But you are doing numbers 15 through 21. The odds, okay, then you're doing 25, 27, 35, and 53. I should have the answer key posted in Schoology as well. You're also going to submit this work so I can see that you did it. So make sure you check, okay, and then submit it. If you finish both of those things, then go back and make sure, did you submit your stuff from last Friday's folder? And then yesterday, which was Monday, did you make that submission as well? If you got both of those done, then I will put a few other activities in Schoology or games that you can play to kind of practice this. So that is what you are working on in class. If you have questions, please go to the class kick, and I can help you with any of these problems.